You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.
Hello, my name is Darrell Wilson, and I'm a fantasy football-aholic. I am the host of this episode. Welcome to Fantasy Football Addict Support Group. This is an open meeting of fantasy football-aholics. Would all who care to please join me in opening with the moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering and crying about the retirement of Kobe Bryant? Wait, my bad. Different sport, wrong sport. Moment of silence for the Gronkowski. Now for the serenity prayer. Fantasy gods, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change and the courage to change my lineups by putting the sleepers in when I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thou will not mine be done. Amen. Fantasy Football Addict Support Group is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from fantasy football-aholicism. The only requirement for membership in Fantasy Football Addict Support Group is a desire to continue to play fantasy football and have many teams. There are no dues or fees for Fantasy Football Addict Support Group membership, but we are self-supporting through our own contributions. Fantasy Football Addict Support Group is only allowed with NGSC Sports, not allowed with any other sect, denominations, politics, organizations, or institution. We do wish to engage in many controversies. We do not endorse or oppose any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay merry and help other fantasy football-aholics achieve the Shiva. And now, I introduce my guest, or should I say co-host, weekly, Rory Davis. Rory, what's going on, man?
What's going on, big homie? Big Miller, what's good, man?
Oh, man, I'm chilling, man. Hey, man, it's funny that last week, you brought up the whole Kobe Bryant and Peyton Manning comparison. Well, it's official now. One of them will be leaving the game, and one of them, I think, is still trying to hold on to the game. So we'll see how that works out.
Right now, it looks like maybe both of them could be leaving the game, right?
It could be, but Manning said he wants to come back. Manning said he wants to come back.
Oh, wow. He must be pushing.
Yeah. It's their reports are saying even if it's not the Broncos, he wants to come back. I don't understand.
I don't think that's even why. I don't think that's even a good idea based on his health, neck surgery and all that stuff. I mean, he had a great career, man. Just go ahead and, shut it down.
Especially stuff with his hands, the beginning of the season, his hands were numb and all that type of stuff. All that's effective nerve damage. So that's crazy that, what does he have left to prove? Like, really, what does he have left to prove? I don't get it.
Are you gonna risk, possible, I don't know how strong of a chance, but you risk possible paralysis if you injure your spine, so, I mean, you already won a Super Bowl, MVP, most, everything. I mean, Hall of Fame for sure, first ballot, so, I mean, there's nothing else really to me for him to do right now.
Yeah, man, so we had an interesting week, interesting Thanksgiving. Some teams were wrecked. I know my teams were wrecked by a bunch of underperforming players. Going also up against, I had the pleasure of facing Calvin Johnson in a league or two of mine. Oh, man. The things that I was sure of in about week 4 or 5 on my teams, I'm no longer sure of because, as you know, I am on the verge of elimination in the field goal. But I was dead in the water in a couple of them, and that seemed more likely that I'll be in the playoffs. So, whatever's clever, you know how it goes, man. Like it's all fun to me. So what's on your mind for the week? Any thoughts on this past week before we dive in?
You know what? I noticed something interesting this past weekend, and it's the dab. You know, I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. The dab, that dance that can.
Who isn't familiar with the dab?
But I don't know. Maybe you live on a rock somewhere. Maybe you just come out of the rock to listen to our show. But you know, so this past weekend, man, I noticed a lot of guys in the NFL started doing the dab. So I'm like, you know what, man? Cam Newton is now a trendsetter. You know, leading the league as a face, you know, of the NFL right now. You know, high MVP candidate and setting dance trends. You know, so man, as a Cam Newton fan, I'm really, you know, excited and, you know, pleased to see the kind of statue that Cam Newton, you know, having in the NFL right now as a young black quarterback doing his thing. Hey, that's good for all the younger, you know, African, American, or even Jamaican young quarterbacks coming up. So, you know, Cam, just keep on dabbing. Keep on dabbing, man.
Hey, man, you know what? Cam let me down this week, so I don't have any high praises for Cam. But much props to him in the real game of football. He definitely is doing his thing, for sure, MVP candidate. Possible fantasy candidate, but let's just see how he finishes out the season. But since we're talking about Cam and dabbing a little bit, you know, the NFL is a fraternity of players, and I think a lot of the players are dabbing in support of the ridiculous backlash that Cam got over dabbing, and many people weren't aware of, as far as mainstream goes, what dabbing was. And like you said, Cam's a trendsetter. He brought it to the forefront. So I think a lot of that was in support of Cam Newton, because I agree. I saw with you that there was a lot of dabbing going on. Well, besides all the dabbing in Cam Newton, the Thursday night games, man, it's just Matthew Stafford, Detroit Lions offense, they woke up. They woke up, and you kind of called it last week, saying, like, hey, trust anybody that you got from the Lions. So, hey, if you paid attention to our late episode last week, you knew to put him in the lineup. So, going back, let's go ahead and recap one of the most popular games, one of the most exciting games of this past weekend, which was actually the last game from last night. Definitely one of the games of the year. We have two exciting games yesterday, but specifically last night, some interesting things going on, man, which is the Patriots and the Broncos played. The Brockwaller did his thing. Brockwaller definitely did his thing. But the main takeaway from this game, fantasy football perspective, was Gronk going down. And when he went down, I thought it was going to be something terrible. I was like, oh, my goodness. Like, we already had one tight end go down, but now Gronk is going down too? So, luckily, it's only a bruise, but he could miss multiple weeks. He's definitely going to be out week 13. What does that mean? If you had Gronkowski on your team, it's very likely that you're a contender for the playoffs. Should be in prime playoff position. If you are a top seed and you might have a bye in the first week of the fantasy playoffs, which is week 14 of the regular season, you're sitting pretty. You have Gronk. You got him rested. You might miss 2 weeks. Hopefully he doesn't miss more than 2 weeks. Boom. You got him back ready for your first playoff game, and all you have to do is win one and you're in the championship. But if you don't have Gronk, you are in a world of trouble, and you're trying to make the playoffs. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that because that just didn't make any sense. If you have Gronk and you're not in the playoffs yet and he went down, you are in a world of trouble because I know he was a big part of your team. Now, Rory, if somebody doesn't have Gronkowski, if somebody has Gronkowski and they lost him, what are they going to do?
Next man up. The next man up is Scott Chandler. He's 6'7", big target in the red zone. I think he already has like 4 touchdowns already this year, I believe. And so he's going to be the every down tight end for the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. And, of course, we've said it many times, and it's no, well, actually in the past it was no argument that the Patriots were the number 1 offense. Right now, I'm not sure if they still are. But previously, they were the undisputed top offense. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Scott Chandler is not highly owned in most leagues. So hopefully you have a high draft, a waiver priority, or you have a lot of fab budget this week. Because if you lost Gronkowski, I mean, Scott Chandler could be a plug and play. No, of course, he's already had experience in Buffalo being the main guy, being the number 1 tight end. So, he's not just a blocking tight end. He actually knows how to catch, so he'll be a really good asset. He'd be a really good asset, this week. So, I mean, besides Chandler, I don't know if you were looking at somebody else out there, tight end.
There's definitely somebody else, and I'm going to bring that up in a little bit. There's definitely somebody else, a popular guy who's very underowned. So, and besides like Gronkowski going down, this Patriots offense is just completely falling apart. There's question marks everywhere on this Patriots offense. The only place that there isn't a question mark is at quarterback. Sir Tom Brady is going to produce, and he definitely did produce. Again yesterday, a few calls, one against the Patriots. Finally, that's, it's kind of strange to say that Patriots got robbed of a couple of calls, but they definitely did. Like the Gronkowski's offensive pass interference, which definitely wasn't offensive pass interference. That's just crazy. Another thing is their wide receiver core. They lost Julian Edelman. Then they lost Amendola, who should come back next week. Maybe. They lost Aaron Dobson. Brandon LaFleur hasn't been doing anything. Before that, they lost Deion Lewis. And you really don't know what you're going to get from the running back situation because they really didn't run the ball last night. And James White scored 2 touchdowns last week. You thought James White was going to do damage, but Brandon Bolden was a guy who put up numbers this past week. So when it comes to the Patriots, I'm only looking at really 2 players. One is Tom Brady, and the other one is the kicker. That's pretty much it, But hopefully, like I said, Amendola comes back this week and can help a couple folks out. I'm not into the whole Chris Harper or Keyshawn Martin thing because this is no time in the season where you should be playing around with your lineup and putting those guys in. I do not trust them at all. And the other side of the ball, I mentioned, man, Brotweiler is looking good. I recognize this offense. This is definitely a Gary Kubiak offense. It looks good on all levels. From the quarterback, Brotweiler has a big arm. He's getting the ball downfield to his receivers. I don't know what happened to Demaryius Thomas last night. He made one big catch, but they threw to him tons of times, just didn't convert. He was dropping them, whatever. They'll bounce back. But the offense is fully winterized. Now, I've been mentioning this whole winterized thing for the past couple of weeks, and you witnessed it in full last night. This offense is winterized. The passes are going to the tight ends. C.J. Anderson balled out of his mind. He looks like the C.J. Anderson from end of last year. He looks like the C.J. Anderson that played in the preseason, that averaged 5 yards a pop. He looked like the C.J. Anderson that everybody was talking about in the camps, that they're saying, oh, he should be a top 5 pick, this, that, and the other. He looks like that C.J. Anderson. Ronnie Hillman still exists. By all means, he still exists, and this is going to be a split backfield. But this is C.J. Anderson is back. Or should Ronnie Hillman start? Yeah, I love what they're doing, and Gary Kubiak is smart about it. But we know when it comes to the passing game, C.J. Anderson is going to be in there, so therefore he's going to get more snaps. So I think both of these guys are high-end RB2s. Even C.J. Anderson might be a borderline RB1, and he takes from the game.
Well, this game right here from C.J. Anderson, it kind of made me kind of a little bit thoughtful, man, because we buried this guy. I mean, we put his dirt he was done. We buried C.J. Anderson. I mean, I buried Eddie Lacy. And, I think I even buried Brandon Cooks early in the year. So while I saw this guy, getting the game-winning touchdown run, I'm like, what is it that makes some of these players, go for like 2 months, doing absolutely nothing to help your fantasy team, and then they just decide, seems at a flash to just transform and become, somebody great. So, I mean, I know you had C.J. Anderson, maybe one league somewhere. I could have got him earlier in the year, but I didn't think he was going to do anything. And now he's looking like a great player. He's looking like he's going to bump, Ronnie Hillman back to, the lesser part of the timeshare. So, it's just amazing, man, to see, how players can bounce back, within a season and come back and be productive.
It's funny, man, because one of my biggest games of the year and throughout all my seasons, I actually blew out my opponent, and I had C.J. Anderson on the bench. And the guy who I had in his place, I weighed, because I pretty much had the game won. I weighed, should I put Anderson in the lineup just for the heck of it? But I said, no. Who am I going to put in? I'm going to leave in James White. So James White, frankly, got me 0 points compared to the 28 C.J. Anderson got last night. And I doubled this guy. He was a number one in the league, so I doubled him up. But, we bury guys all the time. And I think, we kind of spoke about C.J. Anderson a couple of weeks ago when it looked like they were starting to run the ball better, saying, like, maybe it was really an injury factor. But as I was looking at him, he still looks kind of hefty, just a little bit. Although he ran good last night, I could just imagine how this offense is going to look going forward because they have a nice little schedule coming up ahead of them. And I just really, really hope, for the sake of C.J. Anderson owners and Ronnie Hillman owners, that Peyton Manning does not come back this season. It's hard to a guy who has done so much for the game and has a legacy like that to keep them away if they're healthy. But we all know that the offense did not look good with him running it. I don't know if it was unable to adapt to the zone blocking bootleg scheme, but Brightwater looks like the truth, man. Brightwater looks like the truth. He's not going to put up huge fantasy numbers every week, but he's going to give you consistent play, and everybody on the team is going to benefit better for it. And the coach is happy, everybody's happy. So who knows, man? Who knows? Speaking of injury bugs, like, Jimmy Graham played a pretty decent Jimmy Graham game yesterday in that shootout between the Seahawks and the Steelers. We got some points from people who we didn't even expect. Probably aren't even in most lineups, dude, to be honest. But I don't know anybody who played Doug Baldwin. I know he's owned in leagues, but he was on the bench. I was like, who owns Doug Baldwin? Oh, he's on the bench. Who owns Marcus Wheaton? Oh, he's on the bench. Who owns Jermaine Kearse? He's on the bench. Like, all these guys are on the bench. I know some people have Martavis Bryant in lineup. Kudos to you. Antonio Brown, Sherman, locked them down. But Jimmy Graham, out for the season. Poor guy. He really didn't have a good year. They seem to start going to him after their bye a little bit, and it seems like his arrow is pointing up, but I hope he bounces back next year. I learned my lesson. I will not draft Jimmy Graham within the first 3 rounds. Somebody else can have him. If he lasts to the 4th round next year, and we have a lot of time to talk about we're going to draft people, I'll maybe draft him then. Thomas Rawls looked good. What's your takeaway from this game?
Jimmy Graham, has been my guy for a few years, man. Jimmy Graham has taken me to a few championships, where I've taken him in the first round. This was the first year that I did not draft Jimmy Graham in the first round because I had a feeling, man, that Seattle, pardon, the language, but it's a place where receivers and tight ends go to die. You know what I mean? Because, the history of receivers going to Seattle, has never been good. I think Sidney Rice had a decent year, 1 year, a few years, several years back, but that was about it. Whenever they sign a top receiver for some reason, I don't know if it's the weather, or maybe it's just the, Pete Carroll now with his, run-heavy offense, Jimmy Graham wasn't really working out at all. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, released in the offseason. Maybe they try to flip him for a late-round pick. But next year, Jimmy Graham would be very easily had in our upcoming drafts for the next season. I guarantee he won't be first, second, or third. You can probably get him in the 6th, 7th, maybe the 8th. you know how we are, about injuries. So, R.I.P. Jimmy, see you next year, buddy. It was good while it lasted, man.
I don't think he'll go that far, but we'll see. And we're recording this podcast on a Monday before Monday Night Football comes on. And there's been slight breaking news, which is the injury of Chris Johnson, who has a fractured tibia, and he's expected to miss an extended period of time indefinitely. Who knows how long he's going to be gone. So, were you going to pick up Andre Ellington? Hold on a second. Hold on. If Andre Ellington is on the waiver wire, you leave Andre Ellington on the waiver wire because he has a turf toe injury. And we've seen this turf toe thing pop up with many different players, and I think Ellington had it last year as well. I do not trust anybody with a turf toe. So, who becomes, in my eye, the number one pickup of this upcoming week and a player that you could definitely trust to put in your lineup for the fantasy playoffs and to try to win you a game would be David Johnson, even over Scott Chandler. David Johnson is a must-grab in this explosive offense. Chris Johnson wasn't a pass catcher. Andre Ellington caught passes, and David Johnson, they ran many plays for David Johnson throughout the course of the season, especially down in the red zone, to put him up against linebackers to get touchdowns. So David Johnson, especially in PPR, he's a must-have. And I'm willing to say, he's pretty much a top 10 player. He's a Sheba winner, man. I think David Johnson's a Sheba winner, to be honest. What's your take on this injury bug in Arizona?
Last week, you and our listeners recall, I was very bullish on Thomas Rawls. I called him a top 5 running back last week. And now this week, here comes along an even more outstanding player in a more explosive offense. Actually, elite offense, because I believe Carson Palmer leads the league in most offensive categories. So we have Ellington is out and Chris Johnson is out. So David Johnson by default, becomes RB1. You say top 10, I'll go a little bit higher and say top 6 with an eye for the 5 coming up. Because we all know he's very explosive. He's returned kickoffs for touchdowns. He's run long screen passes for touchdowns. I think he has 7 or 8 total touchdowns already. So now, if you lock him into 20 touches a game, whether it's catches or carries, there is no way that he does not produce, barring injury. So I agree with you, Melo. David Johnson is the number one ad this week, and we could look back at the end of the season and say, you know what, that David Johnson, he was the pickup of the year. Possible. He's a possible pickup of the year candidate, notwithstanding all those other earlier season guys. But from here to the end of the championship, he could be the difference, man. I agree.
We talk about this all the time. There's always one guy who's going to win leagues for you. There's always one guy. Is he going to be that guy? Who knows if he's going to be that guy. But he is definitely somebody that needs to be owned. Definitely. So another guy, like you had just said, who could be the pickup of the year, and we've already ran across Thomas Rawls. I think really so far the pickup of the year is D'Angelo Williams still, because he wasn't really highly drafted, and he was even on the waiver wire in some leagues at the very beginning of the season. He produced, and he virtually produced in every single game. that he's played in, and he produced yesterday as well, got into the end zone, D'Angelo Williams.
But
Thomas
I disagree.
Rawls?
No, you know what? I'm going to disagree with that because, I mean, D'Angelo Williams was a clear handcuff to Le'Veon Bell, and he already has an established reputation in the NFL as a starting running back. Plus, we knew Le'Veon Bell was going to miss the first 2 games, so we already knew he was going to lock in for the first 2 games, which he did great. He had over 100 yards rushing in both games with multiple score in the other game. So he did, he already showed that he was capable. So if you had him along with Le'Veon Bell, you'd have stashed him, at some point during the year. But
that seems like a smart thing. But I've witnessed. I'm telling you, these are things I've witnessed with my own eyes. Because we've talked about it. We talked about when Le'Veon Bell went down, how you were smart to handcuff him because you had Le'Veon Bell. But in many leagues across America or across the world who plays fantasy football, D'Angelo Williams was available. He wasn't 100% owned. He was like just slightly over 50% owned. He wasn't owned in every single league. And
shame on those Le'Veon Bell owners who didn't handcuff him, But when you look at somebody like Thomas Rawls, who most people, never even gave a second thought, because we heard about was Lynch and Turbin, then it was Fred Jackson. Nobody mentioned Thomas Rawls, and now we're talking top 5. So Thomas Rawls to me would be my pick, for either pickup of the year or the stronger contender, just because of he was such an unknown commodity coming into the year.
As the Kansas City Chiefs are smart, Spencer Ware will be on this list. I don't know why I keep calling this guy Thomas Ware. I have no idea where Thomas is coming from. Spencer Ware. I have no idea. I'm gonna have to Google Thomas Ware and see what pops up. Spencer Ware should be the man because he looks better to me than Charkandrick West. Charkandrick West did his thing while he was playing. Definitely did his thing. No knock on him. But Spencer Ware looked completely different. Big, powerful, bruising back. And, he laid the hat on somebody yesterday. I forget who the defender was, but he ran him over and rung his bell. Hey, so if the Chiefs are smart, man, Ware would be the man, and they'll bring in West as a change of pace guy. And, it's the worst thing that can happen for fantasy owners is if they go ahead and split the backfield for the rest of the season. I try to avoid split backfields at all costs. Let's talk about another injury, man, and what could be done, and what's the fantasy breakdown of this. Ahmad Bradshaw, somebody we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and he was basically a PPR giant last season, and whenever he's healthy, he's a PPR giant, and he was getting a lot of run in the goal line and third down in Indianapolis. So I know we had a pre-talk before this podcast that you're saying uptick for Gore. I think, it's not going to help Gore at all, in my opinion, because Bradshaw, there's a reason why Bradshaw was brought on in the first place. It was because Gore, did I just say Bohr? Frank Bohr, that's not your nickname. Frank Bohr had been banged up. Frank Bohr had been banged up over the past couple of weeks, but he's a workhorse. He's a beast. He's a giant, and he's fifth in the NFL this year when it comes to touches. At 32 years old, that's not a good thing, and his efficiency has gone down. So I don't know if that's your only choice to start Frank Gore, then by any means, you have to start him and your flex or as an RB2. But if you have a choice, I'll kind of stay away from it. Although they have a cream puff schedule, maybe I don't know, man. What do you think? What do you think Frank Gore owners should do?
Well, you know what? We always talk about opportunity and talent, and that combination of both of those. But sometimes opportunity is gonna just beat out talent, and we know Frank Gore is talented, but now he has a clear increased opportunity in Indy. Because with Bradshaw going to the IR, no, Frank Gore is going to get those third down snaps as well. Because they were bringing in Bradshaw in the red zone and third downs, and so he was basically stealing all those catches from Frank Gore. So I see Frank Gore stepping in now and picking up all of that slack. Even though the Colts, they signed Dan Heron, who was with them last year, but he's not a great running back. Doesn't have a lot of bursts. He's nothing special. So if you're a Colts, you sign Frank Gore to a 1-year deal. There is no upside to you holding Frank Gore or saving him for a playoff or for next year. There is no next year, and if you don't win your games, there will be no playoffs. So they have no reason to consider Frank Gore's reps or, monitor or baby him. They're probably going to just run him into the ground and just ride him for as long as he's standing on his 2 feet. So as long as he's standing on his 2 feet, you get him in your lineup and do it with confidence. Because I believe he will stand up to the call and carry the ball and catch it for them as much as they want. If he gets hurt, oh well. Add him to the rubbish pile like everybody else. But if he doesn't get hurt,
camera, if you right now, you'll see a pencil in my hand, and I'll be going just like Lee Corso on college football game day. Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast.
What?
Not so fast. Yeah, he's on the pitch count, man. He's on the. They do not want to run him to the ground. And even Chuck Pagano.
Why not? I'm saying why not?
Because I'm telling you why not. Because if they run him to the ground and they make the playoffs, they don't have him for the playoffs. That's what it is. So
if they don't run him to the ground, there will be no playoffs. They need him right now. They're going
to play him. Do you forget last year how many people won their leagues because they had Boom Herron in the lineup? As much as you're dissing him right now, he's nothing special, but he's a good pass catcher out the backfield. He won a lot of people playoff games last season, towards the end of the season. He had 20-point games galore. Boom Herron did the damn thing.
But what kind of message would you be sending to the locker room? You're bringing somebody like Boom Herron to displace an icon like Frank Gore.
Who said displace? Who said displace him?
As long as Frank Gore is healthy, he's going to get the lion's share. And Boom Herron will be spell back, 10 touches a game, 8 touches just when Gore is tired. That's it. I mean, I really don't see Boom Herron. I don't see Boom Herron coming in and being a threat.
A quote. The coach himself said Frank Gore is, quote, unquote, beat to crap right now. That's the coach said that badly, and he was seen limping badly on the – Did you see any of that game? He was limping badly. I'm sure
he was hurt.
Because they're saying he was hurt. So why are you gonna run a guy to the ground if he's hurt?
Because they don't care. That's what I'm saying. They don't care.
That's not true. You can't just say they don't care. Of course they care.
Well, like I said, he's not signed beyond next year. So what's in it for them? It's a business, man. Capitalism.
Yeah,
they sign this guy to help them run the ball, and
it's about production, Rory. It's about production. It's about production. He does you no good. If you're running him to the ground, he isn't even effective right now, hardly. If you run him to the ground, if you give him more than 20 touches a game right now, when it comes to the fourth quarter, what are you going to do? Because he's not gonna move the pile for you. Not right now. The guy's hurt.
Let me just say one last thing about that. If I'm Ryan Grigson or Chuck Pagano, I look at it real simple. Okay, who would I like to carry the rock for me 20 times? Do I want Dan Heron or do I want Frank Gore? I mean, either answer.
You're missing the point, though. You're not going to give – it's not Dan Heron or Frank Gore. You're going to play both of them, just like over the past few weeks. Amar Bradshaw's been coming in. All I'm saying is Frank Gore is not going to pick up what Amar Bradshaw left off and couldn't do. Like I said, there's a reason they brought in Amar Bradshaw, and that's what Boom Herron is going to do. Boom Herron is going to do what Amar Bradshaw did. He's going to get some work. Maybe not the goal line carries, but he's going to get some work on third downs. He's not.
He's not.
Okay,
he's not because Frank Gore has way better hands than Dan Heron, and Frank Gore has much better pass protecting ability. That's not even any debate. That's not even a point for debate. Frank Gore is just a way better player. I don't care how old he is. You know, like I said, as long as he's healthy, he'll be like 100% upgrade over Dan Herron. With no disrespect to Dan Herron's family either.
Boy, oh boy. Hey, I surely hope that you're not counting on Frank Gore to put up monster numbers. Because what has he done? What has he done for you lately?
Well, we'll meet again next week, and we will definitely bring up Frank Gore in the next show.
What has he done for you lately? He doesn't even have a 100-yard game this year.
No, but it's not about the yards. It's about the points. And he's scored double digits for like 8 weeks in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's see. Against Atlanta, he had 14 carries for 34 yards.
From week 3 to week 11, he had double digits in every game.
No. From week 3 to week 9, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In PPR, he had 5 double-digit games. 5 double-digit games. He didn't go double-digit against Jacksonville, and he didn't go double-digit against Carolina. So then, even after the bye, even the last 2 weeks, he didn't do anything. That's all. I mean, all I'm saying, like, you know, you could get married to Frank Gore and have him in your lineup all you want to, but I don't know. I wish you best of luck. I wish you best of luck.
All right, you know what, man? Let's hope for the best, and we'll revisit it next week, and we'll just update, you know, our listeners on the Frank Gore debacle or debate, whichever it's going to be. It could be a debacle or it could be a debate, so we don't know. We'll see next week.
The Dolphins fired their offensive coordinator. So this is the only thing I have to say about that, and, you know, it's pissed me off to the highest level of festivity, where you have a player like Lamar Miller, who I have no idea why the Dolphins do not like Lamar Miller. When you give him the ball, he produces ridiculous numbers. So why do you want to trust a guy like Ryan Tannehill to keep on airing it out, throwing interceptions, this, that, and the other, when you have a stud running back like Lamar Miller? But now you might even have a better running back in Jay Ajayi, and you're not giving neither of those guys the ball. Like, they even have 15 carries between them in yesterday's game. So, Mr. Laser, get out of here. You're fired. One thing that I did see from this game that I am impressed by, and why did it take so long? Why did it take so long to get Devontae Parker into the lineup? And these coaches, I just do not understand these coaches where they say, oh, this young player, he's talented, he has all the measurables, but especially a wide receiver, he's not doing his assignments right, So until he learns his assignments, he's not going to get in the game. We've seen that with Dorial Green-Beckham in Tennessee, and we're seeing that with Devontae Parker. Granted, he was injured for the preseason and he couldn't really get on the field, but from all accounts, he had been ready to play from like week 4 on. Put this guy in the lineup, and he played a pretty decent game last week. So what I expect to see going forward, especially with Rashard Matthews being out, is Devontae Parker getting heavy loads and the coaching staff seeing what he has to offer, because this team is not going to make the playoffs. You've invested in Ryan Tannehill. You've invested in a lot of players on the offense. Get this young stud the ball and see if you can build on something for next year. That's just my opinion. With that being said, they play arguably one of the top 2 worst passing defenses in the NFL next week. If you can't get Scott Chandler, if you can't get David Johnson, especially those people who lost Julian Edelman and still haven't recovered from losing Julian Edelman, pick up Devontae Parker, because he's starting, and with the attention that the Ravens are going to give Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker is going to go off. I'm calling it. He is going to go off next week. You need to get in the playoffs. You need a wide receiver. Get Devontae Parker. That's all I'm saying about that.
Well, when you or myself or any other player, you get that conviction, you get that gut feeling, and you just know that it's right. That's the best feeling because it doesn't matter if what the result is. Just knowing that you went with your instinct or with your gut, And I like that Devontae Parker call because he's pretty much due. It's a perfect scenario for him now. With Matthews getting hurt and firing the offensive coordinator in Miami, Devontae Parker, man, he could be another late season, surprise. So hey, I'm with you, man. Get Devontae Parker in your lineup.
And one of the reasons, man, not to throw blame out there, but I'm blaming. It's time for me to blame. I'll try not to go on a rant, but it's time for me to blame some people. First person I'm blaming for my lack of success this season in fantasy football is Jimmy Graham. I put too much trust in Jimmy Graham early in drafts, and every team I've had Jimmy Graham on has been one of the worst teams. The second person I'm going to blame is Fat Eddie. Fat Eddie, I blame you for my teams not being successful. And I had you on 2 teams, and both of those teams suck. Next person I'm going to blame, C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson, I blame you for my team sucking. But if you have C.J. Anderson now's the time to play it. It's a little different with Eddie Lacy. I still don't trust Eddie Lacy. He looked good, but Eddie Lacy's bound to do something boneheaded and get benched for the game. As big as the game that he had on Thanksgiving, he could have had an even bigger game had he not fumbled the ball. He could have had a huge game. So James Starks is still there. And Devontae Parker. I drafted you, buddy. You and Brashad Perryman. I drafted both of you guys. You guys are supposed to break out, be the stud rookie wide receivers to compare to last year's wide receiver rookie class and perform. No, we don't get any Devontae Parker early in the season because of injury. We don't get him because the coaching staff doesn't like him. But, Devontae, here's a chance to make it up to me and all the rest of the fantasy football holics out there that put their trust in you, and all the fantasy football holics that need a big play from an underrated guy to get them in the playoffs or even win them championships. You could get the love fest that was highly bestowed on you back again from beginning of the season to now. Devontae Parker, step up, buddy. Recluse yourself from this blame. All right, man. Like I said, Monday Night Football is about to pop off.
Hey, Big Mello.
Yes, sir.
Let me just add one person to blame to your blame game. Hey, I blame Andrew Luck because Andrew Luck has killed me everywhere. I mean, first he was playing bad, then he got hurt, then he was playing bad again, then he got hurt again. So Andrew Luck, man, you've really been a thorn in my side this year. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Oh, the opposite of blame. Since he flashed up on my TV, man. We really don't talk much about Adrian Peterson, man. And he is quietly, seriously quietly having one of the best seasons in the NFL, man. Minnesota Vikings just go about their business. And I mentioned before, they're not a sexy team. They're not a sexy team by any means, but I'll be damned if Adrian Peterson's name shouldn't be in the hat for fantasy football MVP right next to Devontae Freeman and Cam Newton and Tom Brady and Carson Palmer. Adrian Peterson's name needs to be right there. Leading the league in rushing yards. It's time to respect this guy, one of my all-time favorites. You know me, man. I just have to bring him up somehow. But anyway, real quick, man. So we don't have any talk about the Cleveland Browns or the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm very interested to see what this Baltimore Ravens offense is going to do without Joey Flacco. And, they look terrible right now. Who knows who's going to score fantasy football points for these guys. Who knows? So let's just see how much Mr. Matt Schaub can help produce for this offense. Let's see if Chris Givens could ball. Let's see if Aiken could ball. Let's see if Josh McCown could get Barnkowski, back into the end zone a couple of times. Any last words before we sign off, man? This is a short episode today. We just have to get it in early this week for a lot of you guys out there. I do get messages saying, hey, you guys always do your show on Tuesday, and, you give good advice, but we can't pick up the guys that you guys say pick up because you do it on Tuesday, and we're missing our waiver wire. Well, here it is. Our show is going on Monday tonight, and it's definitely going to be out published by Tuesday morning or even late tonight. So listen to the guys that we say pick up, and you can't say that I didn't help you. You can't say I didn't help you do anything at all ahead of time.
One last guy I'll mention, and this guy has been a thorn in my side as well, but Dante Moncrief got double digits in targets last week at 8 catches, 114 yards. So I think he's someone to keep an eye on right now as he's heating up. Hasselbeck is in there now, and, he was a backup, starter, so he was probably throwing to Moncrief a lot, and, maybe they developed some chemistry. So if you have some kind of issue at receiver, you're in a pinch in a must-win game like most of us this week, Moncrief is not a bad guy to gamble on because, T.Y. Hilton, he has those games where he disappears. If he doesn't catch a long touchdown pass, he probably doesn't do anything. So Moncrief is more of a possession guy, and he might be a good bet for 6 or 7 catches for around 80 yards, and if you're lucky, he gets in the end zone. So, keep an eye on Moncrief.
I start Dante Moncrief weekly, bro. I don't see him available anywhere, but yes, if he is available or if he's just sitting on your bench, get him in. Depends on the matchups, man. We mentioned a couple weeks ago, Colts have beautiful matchup coming down to the wire and to the rest of the season. So yeah, that's somebody you should definitely be on the lookout for and try to get them into your lineup because they're gonna produce. So for my co-host, Rory Davis, it's your man D Will, aka Mello, aka Spitz Dave, aka Sports Fanatic. This is Fantasy Football Addict Support Group. Good luck, and we'll catch you next week to talk the playoffs. So signing off for AGSC Sports. Enjoy your night. Enjoy your day. We're out.